Let's get to our first guests. Retired Rochester, New York Chief of Police and New York congressional candidate Singletary. Also with us is former Georgia Congressman, retired U.S. Air Force Reserve Lieutenant Colonel and Chaplain, host of the Doug Collins podcast, and author of The Clock and the Calendar, a front row look at the Democrats' obsession with Donald Trump, Doug Collins. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. LaRon, we'll begin with you. Thanks for serving your community, by the way, sir. You were a lifelong Democrat, but changed parties after the Democrats began to demonize cops, began to demonize law and order in our civilized society. As you heard in the preamble, I can't suggest the Republican Party for you as a party until they make up their minds that they want to actually oppose Democrats' deviancy rather than normalize Democrats' deviancy. Have you considered going independent?
I tell you what, no, I mean, for me, I'm just a Republican member right now, wanting to serve the people. But I hear what you're saying. There's a lot of dissension right now, I think, within the ranks. And I think one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we are able to come and unite on one page for the American people. Right now, people are hurting, Chris. And it's about, it's not, to me, it's not about the party, it's about the people. But certainly we want to make sure that we get back to conservative values for the citizens across the United States of America.
Amen. Amen. Vote your values. Don't vote party, vote your values. Congressman Collins, your new op-ed for the Washington Examiner talks about the Trump-era First Step Act, which addressed unfairly long prison sentences for nonviolent criminal offenders. I hasten to point out it wasn't Democrats who got this done, but it was President Trump. But now Democrats are letting violent killers off easy, like this clown Gascon out in California. Did the Democrats take the wrong message from Trump's success?
No, these liberals who understand, especially if their attack on criminal justice system, it's not criminal justice reform. Let's make this very clear. Donald Trump, myself, we had what criminal justice reform was, and that's reforming the system, strengthening our police force, strengthening our law enforcement, working with our corrections so that we have less recidivism when people get out, so they have the tools when they come back into their communities, which, by the way, 95% of them actually do get released from jail. And that is a smart way to spend money and also believe in people. Chris, you've been talking about our values here in the last little bit. The values of a conservative is one that believes in people. We're the ones that should be out there on these messages. Donald Trump had it right. First Step Act is something that is good for helping us get to a society in which we punish criminals, but also work to find a way so that they can become a productive citizen in society. And conservatives can't just simply do the law and order bit here and just say throw them all in jail. No, it's time we actually used our brains to think. That's why I'm so glad you pointed out the fact that Newt Gingrich and others provided the conservative basis for ideas in an election. I don't want a moderate Joe Biden. A moderate Joe Biden is a far left Republican, and we don't need any far left Republicans. We need conservatives who will stick to the people's agenda.
Amen. LaRon, earlier this week, to his credit, New York City Mayor Eric Adams called out Black Lives Matter after shootings in Brooklyn and the Bronx left several black people dead. Watch.
Here's my question that I put out to the city. Hey, I thought Black Lives Matter. Where are all those who stated Black Lives Matter? If Black Lives Matters, then the thousands of people I saw on the street when Floyd was murdered should be on the street right now stating that the lives of these black children that are dying every night matters.
You're damn right. BLM and the Defund the Police movement have said nothing about the skyrocketing crime against people of color in this country. Doesn't that reveal, LaRon, that violence and the implementation of Marxism, not black lives, is really BLM's primary focus?
Yes, it sure does, Chris. If you look at the defund the police movement, I was police chief in Rochester, New York during that time. If you look at the defund movement, 32% of African Americans became victims of homicide compared to 2019 to 2020. If we're talking about, policies that have disproportionately impacted people of color, minority communities. Let's talk about the defund the police movement. It has disproportionately impacted African Americans in our communities across the country, to include right here in Rochester. We had 81 homicides in the city of Rochester last year, numbers that we've never seen before. 81 homicides, over 400 plus people shot. This year we have 22 homicides. If you look at the homicides in Rochester, 9 out of 10 victims are African Americans. It's time that somebody speak up for people in the communities who are impacted the most. And that's exactly what has happened here in Rochester. When I was police chief, we tried to make sure that we got ahead of the crime, we got ahead of the issues. I was in front of the media telling the media that if you defund the police, it will impact negatively African Americans and Hispanics in some of the neighborhoods who need the police the most.
Yeah, you know what? And shame on you folks in the biased press for elevating BLM and denigrating our police. Shame on all of you. Congressman Collins, a man shot up a mall. He shot up a mall, and then he was released on $25,000 bond, allowed to travel to and from work because of some whacked out crazy judge. That is not justice. That's pure insanity. How do we defeat the Democrats and the George Soros agenda going soft on criminals that are victimizing law-abiding citizens all over this country?
You've hit it perfectly there. That is not criminal. And this is what we were saying all along. This is not criminal justice reform. Your police chief on here, he's stood up. He's been in law enforcement. He knows what it is. It's actually arresting criminals for doing what they do and prosecuting them fairly. This idea that this cashless bail, this liberalism that is going out there is just wrong. When you have someone who has exhibited violent tendencies, who has a history of violent tendencies, they should not be using bail and putting them out on an ankle monitor. That is not what should be happening. And that's what gives a bad name to the very good folks like my co-guest here on actually working to make our communities safer. What we've got to do as conservatives is quit bowing down to the left and the liberal agenda and cowing down to whenever they say, oh, this is what's good for this minority folks or these underprivileged. No, conservatives are the ones that actually care about people. We're the ones that believe that have a God-given right to go out and do what they are trained and ability to do. This is what I have. I'm tired of the left owning these narratives, and when they put out stuff like this, it takes away from those of us who are trying to fight for it.
Folks, look at your screen right now. You've got a black man, you got a Latino man, and a white man all telling you the same thing. We want to be regarded as Americans. We don't want to be divided. Yes. So Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell, quit playing the other side's game. Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's a great conversation. Former Congressman Doug Collins and retired Chief LaRon Singletary, thank you.